Hi guys, let's talk about the deconstruction of what Teal Swan is saying. And I wasn't even aware that Teal Swan became this popular. I wasn't even aware that she has now almost 2 million subscribers, almost as much as Russell Brand or Sadhguru or something, I don't know. She has more subscribers than Mooji. And because she offers very simple sound bites that sound superficially good. For example, in one video, she says that, single mothers should start building communities like they have in Scandinavia, which some people say it's not that common in Scandinavia, but it's basically single mothers getting together in one household, and then in the evening, they all eat together, and during the day, the kids play together downstairs. While it sounds nice superficially, it depends on the consciousness level that you're at. Because to be quite honest, have you seen the movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they have this kind of like spiritual community, and he comes there and the community becomes an absolute disaster? Just like the Osho community became an absolute disaster. And now imagine absolutely regular people coming together and creating communities like that. Can you imagine the disaster? Look at it. Imagine two single women, two single mothers that disagree on a topic, and because their children are involved, they will feel intense emotions, right? So imagine them in an enclosed house where there's two single mothers and a child and two children, let's say, or three or four children, and then suddenly a disagreement happens based on, my child hit your child or something. And then imagine the ensuing disaster. And there's, a lot of CEOs and a lot of CEOs, even female CEOs, say this. They don't really like to hire women that much, especially good looking women, but in general, women. It's not necessarily because women are not doing the work or something. It's a lot of times because they create tremendous havoc interpersonally in the at the workplace, because they start these feuds, and whereas the men are mostly specifically directed towards a goal, and they come in the work and they do the work, the women will start, chatting. It's I remember when I went to my dentist, she was a female dentist in Portugal. Instead of being concentrated on my tooth, she actually was talking and having like a coffee talk with her assistant all the time, not even paying complete attention to what she was doing. And those are habits that in certain places don't work very well. And if in certain situations they might be very well, in other situations they're not so good. And I imagine in a lot of cases become absolute disaster, and every few months there probably one of them will move out, and they'll scream at each other and be like, uh and sometimes you will have luck, and sometimes, people would be together and it would work out. But in its sense, somebody also put in the comments under the video, which received 1 million views, somebody said it would be basically like in the United States, you have the projects, because it would probably get subsidized by the government. And that there's a high likelihood that that would truly happen, I think. And so I think uh that Teal Swan gives out a lot of ideas, puts out a lot of ideas that just are not that sensible, or don't make that much sense, or wouldn't work in a different environment. What the Scandinavian women, for example, are 100% completely different to American women. Imagining single American mothers in the same house, I just can't imagine. I think it would be absolute disaster. It depends also a little bit from which background they come, which kind of like section of the society they're from, how educated, how not. And but Scandinavian women are probably, on the average, Scandinavian women are much more educated and more behaved, I would say, than American women in general, I would say, on an average. And I think that's so you cannot transport these ideas, and there's a reason why these ideas don't proliferate in certain cultures and countries, because it just doesn't work. I remember there was a woman, she thought about doing something like this, and in the end they didn't. Now, if you have your own house, which most single mothers can't afford, but if you have your own house and then you have a common grounds or something like that, but in the same building, that wouldn't work, I think. And I see that Teal Swan puts out a lot of ideas that receive tremendous attention, and I know why she's receiving so much attention. Because first of all, Teal Swan is visually appealing. Her visuals are very appealing. The eyes, the complexion, the determination of how she talks, the way she dresses. It's professionally set up, and it's perfect for going viral, especially since she talks a lot in absolutes. She talks so much in absolutes, like this must be like that. We should do like this. This must be like that. No, this is wrong. This should be like that. Um, and um, and it just doesn't work on everything that she says. It's just not true. So by constructing the ideas of, I'm going to literally take her ideas and I'm going to show how they are wrong. And you will be blown away if you really listen. Um, and I don't shy away from correcting things, especially in the spiritual realm. Um, no matter how popular the person is, I don't give a fuck. So if I see, that Teal Swan says something that I don't agree with, and I'm 100% sure that she's wrong on that subject, I'm just gonna make a video. I've absolutely no trouble with that. And I don't care what people think. I don't care what, comments they put out. You can insult me all you want. Um, but the idea of what Scandinavian women do, it might sporadically work. And by the way, it is very sporadic in Scandinavia also. Um, it might work. I noticed something. In Portugal, there's a community of very spiritual people. I forgot what the name was, but the community is one of the oldest. It's by some doctor it was started. If we put it in Gemini, maybe we'll put it out. It's one of the oldest communities to never have stopped. I think it goes like 20 or 25 years going, or 30 years, something like this. And it is actually one of the most successful spiritual communities in the world. And all the other communities, because I tried when I was on in my van life, when I was on the road, I was like, hey, I would love to visit some spiritual communities and see if that's something that I want to do. So I looked up these eco villages and all of this stuff. And you know what my surprise was? And that was a big surprise because at that time I didn't know anything about spiritual communities. Except that community in Portugal, that one community, all of the communities broke apart. Literally all of the communities broke apart. There's none that is still existing, or very few that are still existing. Most people leave. Some people start to scream at each other, to fight, have disagreements. And I saw there's a guy in Germany who was at a community in Portugal and Spain, and I think he's called Dr. Collie or something. He sells like vibe kind of thing, like where you bungles I think they're called or something. And they showed a documentary a couple of times with him, and one of the documentaries, they show him that the other people are getting upset about him. They want him to leave. This happens all the time. And I visited one of these communities in Portugal, one of the spiritual communities I visited in Portugal. It wasn't really like a super spiritual community, but it was like outsiders basically coming together and living together. And the toxicity was off the charts. And now imagine, normal, regular, simple American single women coming together with their children in one house. Can you imagine the toxicity? So these things don't work just like that. So when Teal Swan was like, "Yeah, we should have more of those. We need to have more of those in the U.S." Forget it. Forget it. It just doesn't work that way. If you do it under a specific roof, like for example, the Isha Foundation is doing with their yoga village, then it makes sense because you have something that everybody has in common. They have deep interest in yoga and different types of yoga, pranayama, kundalini yoga, all of this stuff, and they are really interested in harmonious living together. So it's a different consciousness level. Then it works. And the thing is, like Teal Swan has these ideas in mind in a way, but she's just releasing it as short, stupid sound bites instead of, expanding on the idea and be like, maybe she just doesn't have the awareness. Maybe she doesn't understand, people really, because just throwing them together like this doesn't make any sense. But if you put them together as like a yoga village where everyone already in their soul plan has interest to grow in terms of consciousness and awareness, then it makes sense. And I could literally take anything. I mean, I'm 100% sure she says things which are good and true. But I have to yet come across. No, there was one or two things that I agreed with Teal Swan. But let's take one of the videos. Let's take the truth about polyamory. No, let's take something short. Let's take a short because then I can immediately react. Uh, let's take. Uh, we are in a man's world made for men. Let's take that one.
We are in a man's world made for men. So if you're going to succeed,
Ah, we are in a man's world made for men, and she just puts it out like a fact. That's absolutely amazing.
you are actually swinging more masculinized. And I'll just explain it this way. I mean, just
This is a super feminine woman that is on here. She's super feminine, and she's singing. She's saying you're swinging more masculinized. Why did she's super
very
feminine?
simple. This is just a little tic tac, okay? Yeah. Men do not run on the same kind of cycle.
I think I saw this one already. Let's take another one. Um, when you don't love yourself, let's see what she says there.
When you really don't love yourself, and everybody kind of falls somewhere on the scale here. So it's almost like right now I want to talk to the people who really don't love themselves. What it feels like walking through the world is that you are afraid of yourself.
One of the things that I really don't like about Teal Swan is the way she talks. It has this tremendous arrogance in it, like as if she knew everything perfectly. And somebody said in the comments that she doesn't talk like that, but she does. I mean, she really does.
So there's some level of fear because you don't have self trust. What I mean by that is trust is to be able to rely on somebody to act in your best interest. So when we have self trust, it means I can rely on myself to act in my best interests. When you've got these internal splits that happen inside you as a result of turning against aspects of yourself, what happens is you've got parts of yourself that will take an action that are against your best interest, and you're the one that has to suffer the consequence of that, of course. Yeah, don't forget to join my free 7-day self.
Um, but there's nothing much to disagree with here. It's self love. The moment you lose fears, that in a sense is true. The moment she just says it differently. The moment you lose fears, you start to become more self-loving, because a lot of times self-hatred has to do with fears of being alone, for example. So if you're fearful of being alone, then you enter often into situations that are toxic for you, and that's the opposite of self-love. But it took me a long time to understand self-love, because self-love is literally the decision to do things which are harmonious for your body and your psyche. Everything else is self-hatred. It doesn't have to be necessary to do with to doesn't have to do anything necessarily with other people. It doesn't have to. Even just doing something that is not harmonious for you in any other. For example, if I were to overwork in a way that it's bad for my body, then it's not harmonious for my body, and that's self-hatred actually.
Really have. If you look at the vibration of love, it would be really easy for us to say that the opposite of the vibration of love is the vibration of hate, but it actually isn't. The opposite of the vibration of love is the vibration of fear. And so obviously, I mean, it's like it goes without saying, given that premise, that the opposite of self-love is self-fear, right? Hello there, I'm happy.
The opposite of love is self-fear. That doesn't make any sense. I think I know what she's trying to say. Um, but it's kind of obvious, isn't it? It's not like she's saying something, new. I like to think of it more like this. Self-love is the decision for something harmonious, and self-hatred is the decision for something inharmonious, disharmonious. And there's a lot of people coming and going, distracts me. Um,
If you're in.
Let me see something else.
So what I do when I'm in that mode where my mind is eating itself with these negative thoughts is I get into the observer mind. So I'm actually watching myself thinking those thoughts. Oh my gosh, I don't like your thighs. Oh my gosh, you've got.
I don't want to even listen to it right now. But yeah. Where was I? I feel like I need to do something else right now. My energy is telling me that, so we'll see each other a little bit later.